So I couldn't for the life of me understand why Chinese EVs are allowed into the UK tariff-free. Europe has a 35% tariff on them. The US has a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. And the UK is 0%. And it is literally taking the whole market. They sell them at a far, far lower price, maybe than even cost, just in order to penetrate the market. This is regularly done by China. That is how they take over every industry. Once they take over the industry, then they bump up the price. That has happened, I can tell you, my own business career. This is regular practice on them. I know a plant, I don't want to tell you where, but a plant in a certain country that was producing chloride products, and they were just, the Chinese dumping was killing them. They couldn't sell and they were trying to remain open. They put anti-dumping charges on them. They tried to do it and still they undercut. They were clearly loss leading. And eventually that plant had to shut down. Who did they sell the plant to? Well, they sold that plant to a Chinese company. And that Chinese company immediately closed it down. It was the only one left, pumped up the prices for chlorine in that country. And there you have it. This is regularly what's done. It's happened with the rare earth minerals in the US, where they had a refinery. The Chinese bought it. There was a 5-year clause. They had to keep it open 5 years, and 1 day later the Chinese shut it down, right? They bought it, shut it down, and now you're reliant on China. This is how they operate. Now, I couldn't for the life of me understand why the UK was so open, why the Chinese is building a super embassy, massive embassy in London, again tried to get blocked. Why? Under Boris's terms, the 5G networks were all penetrated by Chinese tech, and even after a mental pressure by the US, even with Boris's backbenchers rebelling and saying, no, you've got to get rid of this 5G, Chinese 5G tech, which just transmits all the information back to China. You've got to get rid of it. He still refused until he was facing such a rebellion that he backed down and he agreed to get rid of it. This is what's happening. Remember, the nuclear power plants in the UK also were meant to be built by China. What is this penetration that was going on? And now we have the Chinese spy case with Starmer. So the Chinese spy case was, there was a Chinese spy, right? And went to court, and due to the government not providing enough evidence, which was to say that they are a threat, which was already said a million times, and they could do it now and just say they're a threat, and they refused to do so. It collapsed. The Chinese spy case collapsed. And Starmer is trying to point fingers at this one and that one and the Tories and his own ministers and everyone. Essentially, it's himself and his government and the Labour Party and the UK as a whole, really. And the reason is the Chinese buy the UK debt. I was always wondering who is buying useless UK debt that is way above whatever they're offering, 4.7%. The inflation in the UK is clearly way higher than that. And so they're losing money on every bond they buy for the 10-year bond, and it's going to get worse. So why would you ever buy such a thing? The answer is it's the Chinese buying it in order to get control of the UK. When you own the debt of a country, you own that country. Please see the Ottoman Empire, which collapsed, which defaulted on their loans in 1878, right? They only took out their first loan in the 1850s. They defaulted in the 1870s. That's how quickly it goes. And once they defaulted, it still didn't matter. The European powers came in and said, we're taking your tax revenues anyway. And even when the Ottoman Empire itself collapsed in 1914, the new Republic of Turkey still had to pay it off. And in fact, the last payment on those debts was made in 1954. So guys in 1954 were still paying for debts taken in 1850, 100 years later. That is what happens when you get in a debt crisis, and it shows you who really owns a country. It's not the government. You can change the government a million times. You can change whatever you want. It is the debt holders that own the country. And I mean, not even going to go into how they forced Turkey to do free market, essentially saying allow other countries to destroy your internal market. That's what happened to the UK. That's what's happened to every country. That's why the US is now going to fortress America back with tariffs, because free trade is a diabolical disaster unless you are a free trade winner, such as China. China loves free trade, even though they don't practice it. But anyway, they should love it because they would win. But even they don't even do it. It's such a total farce. Even the one country that could actually do really well doesn't even do it, because why even give in a little bit when you can just decimate everyone? So this is what's happening in the UK. The Chinese own the UK debt. They're the only buyers. If they dump that, the UK literally goes bankrupt. Debt crisis within 5 seconds. And so because of that pressure they put on any government, the Tories as well were in on it, don't get me wrong, Tories were in on it, Labour's in on it, and even when reform come in, they will have to face the fact that when they sit down after they win the election, the Chinese guy will come and say, listen mate, we own your debt and we're the only ones buying it. And if you don't do what we say, we're not going to buy it and we're going to dump the debt, which basically will make you bankrupt. And so they will comply. Reform will comply as well. Everyone will comply. And so we have the Chinese super embassy. We have no tariffs on EVs. We have no controls over Chinese manufacturing, flooding the UK, all the electronics and everything dumped into the UK to destroy the markets. And then the Chinese coming up and buying up specific little industries such as Weetabix. Well, very strange thing to buy. But they bought all these weird food items and things like that. Very strange, very specific, targeted buying. And so we see in the Netherlands today, Nespris, I forgot what it's called, Nexprisia. Anyway, it was the only European chip maker bought by the Chinese. And today, the Netherlands took it over. They retook it over. They literally just grabbed it from the Chinese, said, we're not going to allow you to make the only chip making in Europe be yours. Because again, what China will do, they'll allow it, they'll allow them to wither and die or kill them off themselves, because again, they own it, and that's what would happen. So the Dutch government stepped in. Now the UK government would never do that and will never do that, because they are totally bought, paid, corrupt to the hilt, completely beyond belief. No saving. The UK is way beyond saving. Total corruption. I mean, more than any Latin American country. Totally and utterly corrupt. So yeah, that's basically what's happening with the US. I mean, with China. The spy scandal will not go away. Will Starmer fall? No, obviously not. And there we have it. The Chinese owns the UK. Crazy. It took me a while to put the pieces together, but there it is.